Finally, some good news for Fallout fans. We have been waiting forever for something good to happen in this franchise, right? First, it was Bethesda upgrading the next-gen graphics that predictably ruined the game and it's still unplayable. And now Bethesda is saying that they're gonna put microtransactions in the game because that's not desperate in the slightest. But finally, something actually good happened in the Fallout franchise. Let's ignore the fact that the Fallout TV show season 2 is still happening and it's going to be a disaster. But the good news is Obsidian Entertainment is not making Fallout 5. That's right. After Avowed, after the Outer Worlds 2, which is, category A useless garbage woke slop, they're not getting Fallout 5. Oh boy. Now we just need to hear that Bethesda is not making Fallout 5 also, and that Fallout 5 is put on indefinite hold and we're never getting a new release of Fallout 5. That is the most absolute based scenario that we can get. Because everything else that involves Fallout 5 being made, or Elder Scrolls 6 being made at this point, is objectively gonna obviously turn into a disaster. No one's going to want to play it. It's going to be garbage. It's literally going to be Starfield all over again. So, if you're a true Fallout fan, you know that objectively, the best course of action for the future of Fallout is the game not even being made. Let it be put on ice for 3, 4, 5 years until Bethesda goes fully bankrupt and Microsoft is like, yeah, you know what, we're just gonna scrap this for parts and see what happens. That is the best course of action, because this is the math. Imagine if Bethesda actually somehow makes Fallout 5 in the next, 3 years or 2 years, or, well, I honestly think it's going to be faster because Microsoft has lost so much money on it that Fallout 5 and Elder Scrolls 6 is going to happen at the same time. Oh boy, man, if one disaster wasn't enough, they're planning to have two. Oh man, I don't think my heart can honestly take it at this point. But if we get the next Fallout game, or Elder Scrolls game for that matter, the next 3 years, it's gonna be garbage. It's gonna be probably worse than Starfield. Best case scenario, we're just getting another Starfield. Worst case scenario, it's even fucking worse. Well, it's at least not going to have as much loading screens as Starfield, so that's I guess the only upside in this whole situation. And if that happens, if we do get a Fallout game that's garbage in the next 2 to 3 years, we're gonna probably have to wait 5 more years minimum for the next release. So we're gonna be losing 8 years and gaining fucking nothing but disappointment out of it. Now, don't get me wrong. I have roughly 250 Starfield bad videos. I'm not even fucking joking, by the way. I literally have almost 250 Starfield bad videos, and I can still keep going, boys. My hate is unquenchable for Bethesda at this point. Now, granted, a Fallout 5 or Elder Scrolls 6 coming out at this point would probably be generational wealth for my non-existing offspring just yet, but I actually just want a good Fallout game. That's all I'm asking, okay? A good Elder Scrolls game, I call that Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. Wayward Realms looks promising. There's stuff, okay? In the genre of medieval fantasy dragon-slaying aesthetics, we have options. Now, granted, for Fallout, we don't really have that many options. There was Atomic something, don't remember what's called. But there were some things, don't get me wrong, there were some things that look good, but nothing has really hit that hot. Again, Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon is currently the go-to if you want an actual good Bethesda-like experience in, Skyrim-esque style. But other than that, there's kind of fucking nothing. So, it is what it is.
Today's a fine day to talk about Obsidian Entertainment because they are rounding out one of the busiest years we've seen from a game development studio, period, end of story. And while I was not a big fan of Avowed, Obsidian delivered on the 2 other games for me that they showed.
Oh, now he's not a fan of Avowed. Jeez. These opinions just change so fast.
This year in Grounded 2 and the Outer Worlds 2. And it's one thing if these games are like small, but Avowed and the Outer Worlds 2 are both huge games, and Grounded 2 is in an early access state better than most games at their full release. So getting one of these out the door, I think, would have been perfectly fine for any other company, but 3 out the door in the same year is worthy of some praise. And so the question is,
it's not worthy of praise. Do you think Obsidian made 3 games in 1 year because they sold anything that well? No. No, they just got a money injection from either Microsoft or something. These games are all Game Pass. So Microsoft literally gave them the money to make them. That's how this works. Any studio can make 5, 10, or even 20 games at the same time, as long as a multi-trillion-dollar company, a new conglomerate, gives you money so you can do that. It's not complicated.
as Obsidian reloads the chamber, what's next for them? Well, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but they've made a 4th announcement this year, and it's a smaller one, no doubt. But I think as we start to follow the trail of breadcrumbs around leaks and rumors and interviews, you start to put together a picture of how Obsidian views their future beyond what we know is coming, which is Outer Worlds 2 DLC. So let's start breaking that down. Ladies and gentlemen, they announced a turn-based mode for Pillars of Eternity 1. 2 already had this in Deadfire, but now they've gone back to a over 10-year-old game and put turn-based in that one. A lot of us were wondering, what is Josh Sawyer up to? No doubt.
Guys, how can we steal a little bit of that Baldur's Gate 3 success? Oh, let's make it turn-based. Wow.
Like much of the Obsidian staff, supporting all of these releases, but we haven't seen him really since Pentiment, which was the last game he directed, and that was absolutely phenomenal. And a lot of us are eager to see what this genius is going to put his mind into next. He's one of the main, pardon the pun, pillars of the Pillars universe. The other was Carrie Patel, who we saw exit Obsidian Entertainment at the top of
Oh, yes, my wife. She ruined Avowed and then she dipped. She had absolutely... Carrie Patel work history barely gives her the right to write a single line of dialogue, okay? She's Alana Pierce levels of maybe she contributed to a cookbook. But she directed a whole game. And that's so wild. She had literally 0 qualifications should there be a game director. But here we are.
This year. And given the conversation around Avowed and how it didn't seem to do as explosively well as we maybe hoped it would have done, which we'll talk about in a little.
I mean, when your review is the game's short, but you don't want to play a long game anyway, and that's why you should buy it, is kind of insane. Again, Mr. Maddie's review was a literal meme when it came to this. The game is short, but you don't want to play a long game anyway. The dialogues are bad, but you don't want your choices to ruin your game immersion, right? The game is bad, but you should buy it anyway. Man, that was the greatest meme review I have ever seen in my life.
A little bit more extensive detail in a second here. We kind of figured Carrie was like, okay, if you're not working on Pillars, she was one of the main supporters of that franchise since its inception, then I'm out. And a lot of us took that exit alongside like no real premium DLC for Avowed as a sign that maybe the Pillars universe is being put on ice. You combine that with more aggressive moves internally by Microsoft to kind of hit certain metrics for all of these studios. And would Obsidian Entertainment even be incentivized to pursue a sequel to Avowed? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment, but this turn-based mode looks awesome.
We talked about that yesterday. No. Well, actually, yes. But everyone's saying no because none of these games deserve a sequel.
And in fact, it's that...
Okay, the Pillars actually does. Pillars is a good game. I have not played it, but I have seen what it is about, how it works and what happens. Pillars is good, but I mean, who cares at this point about, scuffed Baldur's Gate 3, honestly, right?
At real time with pause combat that has always pushed me away from games like Pillars of Eternity. Unfortunately, I know that sounds very casual of me to say, but I've just never found it to be a fun combat system to shoot you straight. It's not the camera angle or anything like that. I very much prefer what, say, Baldur's Gate 3 does, and this looks much more in line with that. So it's a video of Josh Sawyer just breaking down what's new in this turn-based combat system. It's in beta right now. You can check it out for yourself. But of course, you know me. I can't take that at face value and be like, okay, thanks for the update, Josh. It's got to be, you know, all right, what's next? Like, what are you guys doing this for? This is a over 10-year-old RPG. Is it really going to drive a lot of people there? It's not like we're still buzzing about Avowed and, man, we want more pillars. It's kind of like, hey, we're doing this thing. So my guess is that they are doing this to smooth out.
Less than 60% of people finished Avowed's tutorial, which is 10-20 minutes of gameplay. So there you have how many people actually enjoy Avowed.
Out some of the edges of the Pillars universe and making it more accessible for the future. You know, you look at the addition of turn-based mode, that smooths some edges in an otherwise combat.
Yes, using the words as accessible typically is completely rid of all the flags.
System that I think pushes a lot of even hardcore players away. Avowed, the existence of that, just this kind of spin-off within the same universe that's more Skyrim-like, more like, I look at that and I know what that is. It's more casual friendly, if you will, would bring hopefully more people into that Pillars universe.
Skyrim is casual friendly. Avowed is just bad. Avowed is just really, really, really bad. That's it. Okay? I'm not even going to talk about the details, the finite details of this, but it's just really bad, okay? Skyrim is not this in-depth, like, fucking hardcore experience. It's literally, okay, let me find a trap and allow the boss to trigger the trap 15 times in a row and I can kill anything.
And I think the reason they're doing this is because Obsidian wants to hang with the Pillars universe and make an Avowed sequel. But don't take my word for it. How about Chris Avellone, who was one of the leaders at Obsidian for a long while, had left the studio, definitely not in a good spot with the leaders, which is why some people do take his information with a grain of salt. Like, is there a potential axe to grind here? But I do believe Chris, because I know he still knows people within Obsidian, has this type of information. But he says apparently, aside from DLC plans for the Outer Worlds 2, it seems like Obsidian is making no plans for the Outer Worlds 3, but they are doing Avowed 2.
Yeah, we knew about this.
This suddenly puts the prior announcement into frame. Like, okay, you know, you want to make this whole universe more accessible. You're going to make a sequel to Avowed. This comes as a little bit of a surprise given the conversation around the game. But to be fair, if we're just looking at like raw numbers here, it's a
Is Mr. Matty going to give the 6 million Avowed sales number?
Marginal thing, but it's the only data we have. The Steam player charts for the Outer Worlds 2 are not as good as Avowed. If you want to take it a step further, I went over to Steam Spy, which I've spoken to a lot of indie devs. They use this as a tool to kind of help gauge like genre competitors and how much they're selling and what should they expect when they kind of bring their game to market when they're like pitching to publishers. So it's pretty useful data. A lot of them have said like it's very accurate to what their games have sold. So it's definitely not like take it to the bank information, but definitely very useful insight here. But it suggests that Avowed...
The idea... This can be wrong. Yeah, it's very accurate to some, but it's not accurate to some. This is how this works. The idea, by the way, that, you know, this is saying old users, owners, 600,000 people bought this, and this game only didn't even breach 20k players. Yeah, I believe that.
On Steam alone sold just under 650,000 copies. And if you pay attention to what Obsidian's said in the past, they budget their games like they're all going to fail. And you combine that with like Avowed sales and maybe an eventual port, it's possible Avowed is crossing or approaching 1 million sales. Given its tumultuous development cycle though, starting as a multiplayer game, turning into a single player game, it's like 6 years long. I imagine they lost money on that. And the Outer Worlds 2, we saw the marketing poured into that. Everything from the developer direct to IGN first to tons and tons of trailers, tons of merchandise. And that game was in development for over 5 years. And it seems to be doing roughly the same thing, unfortunately. And it's sad because to see the Outer Worlds 2 netting
No, 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 no. The Outer Worlds 2 is a complete disaster because if you look at it, again, literally, we talked about this yesterday. Of the Outer Worlds 2 is easily underperforming by like fucking 70%. It's crazy. Because if you look at the Outer Worlds 1 Steam chart, you need to understand it was not on Steam day one. Like a year passed and then it was put on Steam. And you're telling me the Outer Worlds 2 cannot match Steam's numbers for their first game while being instantaneously out? The Outer Worlds 2 is like, even if this is true that Obsidian is thinking, okay, we're gonna make this game and it's gonna sell 5 copies, they literally sold the equivalent of 5 copies when it came to the Outer Worlds 2. That it has underperformed to such an incredibly high degree that nothing can save it. Nothing. Okay? There is no, even with the lowest budget in mind, if this is not a meme, there is no way Obsidian has made even a single shred of $1 on the Outer Worlds 2. It's not. It is underperforming. It's one of the biggest underperformers this year, honestly.
Less players on Steam than Avowed is like, what? I think this game is a million times better than Avowed, and we all kind of have the Outer Worlds 1 as like a great foundation. Like that had 5 million sales over time, which is a great number. So this kind of speaks to, I think, the damage that Avowed in its release cycle did to Obsidian as a company. I think it definitely damaged their image, where even a great RPG, in my opinion, like the Outer Worlds 2, can't overcome that. It's going to take more. It's going to take, I think, giving people specifically what they want, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, of course, I'm talking about New Vegas 2 and how
the teleportating mouth animations, wild.
Obsidian appears to still be quite resistant to that idea, and I'll get into why I also understand why, as much as it still pains my soul a little bit. Anyway, looking at all of this data, it seems like what they're trying to do is make the Pillars universe more accessible, and they're going to continue to build upon it with Avowed 2, which I know when we interviewed Carrie Patel on Defining Duke, she did kind of suggest like,
okay, no one cares. We honestly want to know, is Obsidian really not going to make Fallout? Okay, I need the good news, Daddy. Okay, give it to me.
Why Obsidian would be like, let's make this bigger and better and market the hell out of it, and this thing's going to do really well for us, and we can take on something like Fallout finally in like a more mainstream way. Just given the Steam numbers alone, I don't think that's what's happening here, and there might be a level of mild panic here. But the reason Obsidian is interested in investing in these games is because it's their own IP. One of the reasons I fell in love with Obsidian, like I think many of you out there, is they have kind of inherited others' projects and in many ways done them better than the original creator. Like they do a really good job just taking in Fallout or Star Wars or South Park and being like, we got you.
Yes. Again, let's keep talking about Obsidian as it's the same company from 30 years ago. Yes, let's keep talking about it like that. None of the people are dead. It's over.
And just leveling things up. Like even though KOTOR is my favorite game of all time, KOTOR 2 has such mind-bending choice and consequence and such incredible companion writing. It literally gives me imposter syndrome every time I play the game. Obviously, New Vegas is the most well-documented example of Obsidian absorbing another company's IP and just doing a phenomenal job with it, creating a long-lasting decade-plus debate on who makes the best modern Fallout game, and many people believe it's Obsidian Entertainment. I will say, and it's probably not the most popular opinion nowadays like it was back then, but I really do feel like the Outer Worlds 2 team did a bang-up job, and if Obsidian got the Fallout IP and made New Vegas 2 with that Outer Worlds 2 team, I think it would be really good. I say that because, I mean...
Well, thank God that's not happening, because that would be a disaster.
The Outer Worlds 2, in a lot of ways, is pretty close to...
Again, there is still not a single person who is commenting anything good about the Outer Worlds 2 dialogue choices. Everyone's commenting, "Oh, you have so many dialogue choices, and none of them lead anywhere," which is stupid to begin with. But the real potatoes here is the fact that everyone is saying that the Outer Worlds 2 dialogue is just painful. There are so many people saying that they would not choose any of the dialogue options because it's not even close with what would they say in this situation. And I agree. And well, if you're talking about if you want to make grounded Obsidian, go ahead, do it. Who cares? But if you're gonna make a role play game, I mean, it's time to admit that you can't do it. Obsidian fundamentally cannot make a role playing game. In any case, Obsidian is never getting the Fallout, even though they're really, really pushing for it. It would be hilarious if Xbox is like, right, we have Bethesda that is garbage, but we have also Obsidian that's garbage. Both of these things are absolute failures. So who do we just give the Fallout franchise to ruin to? Please don't let that happen. In any case, that was Mr. Matty Plays 10 out of 10. Bye!